Have you ever truly considered what it feels like to stand on the precipice of your ninth decade? To look back on a life brimming with moments, memories, and milestones, only to find yourself in a landscape that feels both familiar and profoundly foreign? For most of us, the idea of turning 80 is an abstract concept, a distant shoreline we might one day reach. But for those who have crossed that threshold, life begins to whisper, and sometimes shout, truths that were previously muffled by the hustle of middle age. These are not the gentle platitudes about wisdom and golden years you see on greeting cards. They are the raw, unvarnished, and often painful realities that emerge when the body, the mind, and the world around you begin to operate by a new set of rules. This isn't merely about the process of getting older. It's about navigating a fundamental shift in one's existence. It's about confronting challenges that can quietly erode your sense of health, your most cherished relationships, and the very independence you've spent a lifetime building. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on this deeply personal journey. We will explore 8 of the most painful realities that many seniors only truly discover after turning 80. Our purpose is not to evoke fear, but to foster understanding and empathy. Each of these truths, while difficult, also contains a hidden lesson, a key to preparing ourselves mentally and emotionally so that this final chapter is not one of blindsided despair, but of profound, courageous adaptation. I urge you to stay with me until the very end, because the final reality we discuss may be the most difficult to face, yet it holds the power to completely transform how you view the years that lie ahead. By the time our conversation is over, you may see the landscape of aging in a whole new light. One of the first and most humbling truths to dawn after 80 is the quiet betrayal of the body, specifically through the steady decline of mobility. It doesn't arrive like a sudden storm, but more like a fog rolling in, slowly obscuring what was once clear and effortless. The simple act of rising from a favorite armchair, a motion performed thousands of times without a second thought, suddenly becomes a deliberate, multi-stage process. A casual walk to the mailbox on a sunny California morning can feel like a genuine expedition, requiring concentration and a careful negotiation with gravity. Bending down to tie a shoelace transforms from a fleeting gesture into a strategic maneuver fraught with the risk of dizziness or a loss of balance. It is not simply about moving slower. It is the dawning realization that the body no longer responds with the implicit trust you once placed in it. This shift is profoundly disorienting because for decades, your physical self was a reliable partner. It carried you through long workdays, danced at weddings, chased children through parks in suburban Illinois, and hiked trails in the mountains of Colorado. But after 80, a subtle but persistent friction enters the relationship. Muscles that were once taut and responsive lose their strength. Joints that flexed with ease now protest with stiffness, and the intricate neurological system that governs balance becomes less certain. This isn't just a physical inconvenience, it's a psychological blow. A minor stumble on an uneven patch of sidewalk, which would have been laughed off at 60, now registers as a near cataclysmic event. The fear of falling becomes a constant, unwelcome companion, whispering caution into every step. That very hesitation, born of fear, can create a vicious cycle, leading to less movement, which in turn accelerates the decline in mobility. It's a quiet, internal battle many seniors recognize but rarely articulate. If you've ever witnessed a loved one navigate this difficult change and found a way to support them, I'd be moved to hear about your experience in the comments below. Your story could offer immense comfort to others facing the same journey. The loss of easy movement reverberates far beyond the physical realm, touching every aspect of life. It begins to shrink your world, not by force, but by a series of small, pragmatic surrenders. That weekly trip to the bustling farmer's market might be abandoned because the walking is too strenuous. Visits with friends who live in a second-floor apartment become an impossibility. Even parts of one's own home can become inaccessible, with the upstairs bedroom or the basement workshop feeling as distant as a foreign country. Slowly, imperceptibly, the vibrant, expansive map of your life is redrawn with smaller, more constricting borders, which can leave a person feeling frustrated, isolated, and even trapped within the very walls that once represented sanctuary. Consider the story of Arthur, an 82-year-old retired woodworker from Ohio. His entire life was defined by the strength and dexterity of his hands. He built his own furniture, crafted intricate toys for his grandchildren, and could fix anything that broke. But arthritis began to settle into his joints like hardened glue. Kneeling became an agony, and lifting a heavy piece of oak was no longer an option. At first, a deep sense of defeat washed over him. He saw his workshop, once a place of joy and creation, as a museum of a life he could no longer live. It was a painful period of mourning for the man he used to be. But with the gentle encouragement of his daughter, he began to adapt. He invested in raised workbenches to avoid bending and discovered lighter, more ergonomic power tools. His projects became smaller in scale, but the joy of creation, of turning raw material into something beautiful, returned. The painful reality of his declining mobility forced him to change, but in doing so, it taught him that strength is not solely a measure of physical power, but of the spirit's resilience and its profound capacity to adapt. Flowing directly from the challenge of mobility is another, often more alarming reality: the sudden and pervasive fragility of one's health. Throughout most of life, health feels robust, a renewable resource. You catch a cold, you rest for a few days, and you bounce back. You get a small cut, you put a bandage on it, and you forget it ever happened. But after 80, the body's warranty seems to expire. Its remarkable capacity for resilience diminishes, and what was once minor can suddenly carry monumental consequences. A common cold that would have been a nuisance at 65 can morph into pneumonia, requiring hospitalization. A small, unnoticed cut on the leg of someone with diabetes might fail to heal for months, posing a serious risk of infection. This shift from resilience to fragility is one of the most unsettling discoveries of advanced age, because it fundamentally alters your relationship with your own body. You are no longer steering a sturdy vessel. You are carefully navigating a delicate, fragile craft in unpredictable waters. This truth often reveals itself not gradually, but in a single, life-altering moment. Take the story of Helen, an 83-year-old former schoolteacher from Florida who always prided herself on her vitality. One morning, she slipped on a small puddle of water on her kitchen floor. In her younger years, it would have resulted in a bruise and a moment of embarrassment. But at 83, the fall resulted in a fractured hip. That one instant was a dividing line in her life. It led to surgery, a long and arduous stay in a rehabilitation facility, and a recovery process that stretched over many months. The Helen who returned home was different. She was more cautious, more aware of every potential hazard, and deeply humbled by how swiftly her life had been upended. Her perspective was forever changed. She realized that the robust health she had taken for granted was now a precious, delicate gift that required constant vigilance. This experience, though deeply painful, awakened her to the critical importance of preventative care, installing grab bars in the shower, using a walker for stability, and embracing small daily habits that serve to protect her newfound fragility. If you're finding this discussion valuable and it's giving you a new perspective on the aging process, please let me know by commenting the number 2 below. It's a small gesture that really helps us know we're on the right track. The fragility of health after 80 is not an easy truth to accept. It forces a deceleration, a mandatory slowing down that can feel at odds with a spirit that still feels young and eager. It necessitates a greater dependence on others, on doctors, on family members for transportation to appointments, on caregivers for daily assistance. Yet, within this painful reality lies a powerful reminder. Every single day of well-being is a treasure. Every morning waking up without pain, every day spent with enough energy to enjoy a meal or a conversation is a victory. By treating the body with a newfound respect and care, paying close attention to its subtle signals, and making the necessary adjustments, seniors can continue to live with profound dignity and purpose, even in the face of this greater vulnerability. It is a lesson in humility and gratitude, taught by the very body that has carried them through a lifetime. As physical limitations begin to reshape daily life, they often give rise to one of the most emotionally devastating realities of life after 80, the creeping fog of social isolation. Humans are fundamentally social creatures, wired for connection, community, and companionship. But in the final decades of life, the social fabric that was once so rich and tightly woven can begin to unravel, thread by painful thread. The circle of friends, built over a lifetime of shared experiences, inevitably begins to shrink. Friends move away to be closer to their own children. Some become too frail to socialize, and many, heartbreakingly, pass on. The phone, which once rang with invitations and casual chats, grows quiet. The calendar, once filled with club meetings, dinner parties, and community events, now has pages of empty squares. This is not a loneliness born of choice, but one imposed by the relentless passage of time. This reality is painful not just because of the silence it leaves behind, but because of what that silence represents. It is a constant, ambient reminder of loss, a testament to the fact that you have outlived so many of the people who knew you best, who shared your history and understood your jokes. For many seniors, the days can stretch into long, quiet corridors of time, punctuated only by the television or the hum of the refrigerator. This profound loneliness is more than just an emotional burden. It has been proven to have devastating effects on physical and mental health. It can weaken the immune system, increase the risk of cognitive decline, and plunge an individual into a state of deep depression. Many seniors quietly observe that during periods of intense isolation, their physical ailments seem to worsen, as if the body is grieving the absence of human connection. The lack of regular conversation, shared laughter, or a simple reassuring touch leaves a void that no medication can possibly fill. Have you ever felt a pang of loneliness so deep it felt physical? Sharing that experience, even anonymously in the comments, can be a powerful way to connect with others who understand. Consider James, an 84-year-old retired mechanic from Chicago who lived for his weekly poker game. For over 40 years, the same group of men gathered every Thursday night to share stories, trade friendly insults, and play cards. It was more than a game, it was a ritual of brotherhood. But as the years advanced, the group dwindled. One friend moved to Arizona, another had a stroke and could no longer play, and 2 others passed away. Soon, the game stopped altogether. James found himself facing long, silent Thursday evenings, the quiet of his apartment feeling louder than any noise. The absence of his friends was a palpable ache. It was only when his granddaughter, noticing his withdrawal, signed him up for a bridge club at the local senior center that a glimmer of light returned. The faces were new and the game was different, but the sound of cards being shuffled, the friendly banter, and the shared laughter were blessedly familiar. It reminded him that while his old world had changed, he still had the capacity to build a new one. Social isolation is a cruel reality, touching the very soul, but it is not an insurmountable one. By taking the courageous step to reach out, to join a new group, or even to forge small connections with neighbors, seniors can push back against the silence and invite the warmth of community back into their lives. Intertwined with the challenges of health and social connection is another deeply personal and often painful reality: the gradual, inexorable loss of independence. For an entire lifetime, independence is a celebrated virtue, a cornerstone of identity. It's about paying your own bills, driving your own car, making your own decisions, and managing your own home. It is the very definition of adulthood. But after 80, the tasks that once formed the bedrock of self-sufficiency can begin to feel like insurmountable mountains. Driving at night might become frightening due to declining vision. Preparing a nutritious meal can feel exhausting. Even personal care, like bathing or dressing, can become a challenge that requires assistance. The most difficult part is not the task itself, but the dawning awareness that you must now rely on others for things you have always done for yourself. This transition can stir a tempest of complex emotions. For a generation taught to be self-reliant and stoic, having to ask for help can feel like a profound failure. It can be humbling, embarrassing, and at times deeply humiliating. There is often a sense of guilt associated with it, a feeling that you are inconveniencing your children or caregivers, even when they offer their help with genuine love and enthusiasm. This internal struggle is immense. The loss of independence also fundamentally reshapes one's sense of self. Take driving, for example. In America, a driver's license is more than a piece of plastic. It is a symbol of freedom, autonomy, and control. The day an elderly person has to hand over the car keys is often a day of genuine grief. It represents the loss of spontaneity, the ability to just go to the store, visit a friend, or escape the house for a change of scenery. It is a tangible sign that life has changed in a way that feels permanent and irreversible. If you appreciate these deep dives into the emotional complexities of life, consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support allows us to continue creating thoughtful content that explores these important human experiences. Think of Margaret, an 81-year-old widow in Texas who cherished the two-story home she and her husband had built together. Every corner held a memory. But her arthritis made climbing the stairs to her bedroom a painful and dangerous ordeal. The day her son moved her bed into the downstairs dining room was a practical necessity, but for Margaret, it was a moment of heartbreaking symbolism. It was a visible admission that she was no longer the master of her own home. It took her a long time to come to terms with it, but she eventually began to see that accepting this change, this small piece of help, was not a sign of weakness. Instead, it was an act of wisdom that allowed her to remain in her beloved home for several more years. This reality cuts so deeply because it touches upon our most fundamental needs for dignity and pride. Yet, it also contains a crucial lesson. Asking for help is not a surrender. It is an adaptation, a strategic adjustment to continue living as fully and safely as possible. Independence after 80 may change its form, but it does not have to disappear entirely. It evolves into a new kind of strength, one measured not by what you can do alone, but by the grace with which you can accept the loving support of others. As independence wanes and health needs grow, another stark reality often comes into focus: the relentless pressure of financial strain. For many seniors, the savings they diligently accumulated over decades of hard work, which once seemed like a solid nest egg, can begin to feel perilously thin after 80. This is a quiet crisis happening in homes across the country. The triple threat of rising healthcare costs, expensive prescription medications, and the general inflation of everyday goods can place an immense burden on those living on a fixed income, such as Social Security or a pension. The financial plan that seemed perfectly sound at 65 may not account for the realities of living for another 20 or 30 years with escalating medical needs. What makes this truth so painful is not just the mathematical problem of expenses exceeding income, but the chronic underlying anxiety it creates. Seniors who spent their lives being providers, who prided themselves on their financial prudence, suddenly find themselves worrying about every prescription copay, every utility bill, every unexpected home repair. This fear can lead to a series of heartbreaking choices: skipping social outings to save on gas, choosing less nutritious food because it's cheaper, or even delaying a visit to the doctor for a new ailment because of the potential cost. The constant stress of financial insecurity can take a significant toll on both mental and physical health, creating a vicious cycle where worry exacerbates health problems, which in turn lead to higher medical bills. Is our society doing enough to ensure our elders can live with dignity in their final years? This is a vital conversation, and I encourage you to share your thoughts respectfully in the comments. This challenge is compounded by a profound loss of control. In your younger working years, if money became tight, you could pick up extra hours, find a better paying job, or start a side business. Those options are rarely available to an octogenarian. Instead, they must rely on meticulous budgeting, assistance from their children, or navigating the complex and often inadequate web of government support programs. While these solutions provide essential relief, they can also stir up painful feelings of dependence and a loss of pride. Consider Frank, an 85-year-old retired factory worker who had never borrowed a dime in his life. When his wife needed specialized memory care that wasn't fully covered by Medicare, their savings were depleted with shocking speed. He was forced to ask his daughter for financial help. The first time he had to do so, he felt a wave of shame, as if he had somehow failed in his duty to provide for his family, even in his final years. It took many conversations for him to understand that accepting this support was not a reflection on his lifetime of hard work, but a reflection of a system where the costs of aging have outpaced the resources of ordinary people. Financial strain is a painful truth because it attacks one's sense of security and self-worth, but facing it with honesty and openness within a family can help reduce the burden, protect dignity, and allow seniors to focus on the richness of life that remains, rather than the numbers on a bank statement. Beyond the practical and financial struggles lies a reality that is often invisible to the outside world: a heightened state of emotional vulnerability. After 80, the heart can feel as weary as the body. The emotional armor we build up over a lifetime seems to grow thinner, and the weight of accumulated life experiences becomes more pronounced. This isn't a sign of weakness, it's the natural and human response to a life filled with profound love and inevitable loss. The grief that comes with outliving so many loved ones, a spouse of 60 years, cherished siblings, lifelong friends, is not a single event, but a constant presence. It can leave an emptiness, a hollow ache that is difficult to describe and impossible to fill. Ordinary days can suddenly be ambushed by sorrow, as a song on the radio, the smell of a certain flower, or a passing comment can trigger a flood of memories of those who are no longer there. This emotional fragility comes from the sheer volume of life lived. Grief is no longer a rare visitor, but a frequent and sometimes permanent house guest. Seniors often report that memories, both joyful and painful, resurface with an incredible, vivid clarity at this age. While these recollections can bring great comfort, they also carry the sharp sting of sorrow for what and who has been lost. The unique pain of this vulnerability is that it is often carried in silence. In a culture that often prizes stoicism, especially in older generations, expressing deep sadness or fear can feel like an imposition. Family members, busy with their own lives, may see that their elderly parent is physically stable and assume that everything is fine emotionally. Yet, beneath a calm surface, the heart can be aching. Feelings of sadness, anxiety about the future, and a deep-seated loneliness can build up, unspoken and unacknowledged. If you are finding these insights valuable and they are helping you understand the complex inner world of the elderly, please comment the number 6 below. It helps me know that this deep dive is resonating with you. Think of Dorothy, an 82-year-old widow who had always been the life of the party at family gatherings. After her husband of 58 years passed away, she continued to attend, but her children noticed a change. She smiled less, participated in conversations half-heartedly, and often left early. When they asked if she was all right, she would insist, "I'm fine, just a little tired." It was only when a perceptive friend from her church invited her to a grief support group that she finally found a safe space to let her guard down. The simple act of speaking her grief aloud, of sharing stories of her husband with other widows who truly understood, began to lift the immense burden she had been carrying alone. It reminded her that her pain was valid and that she was not alone in her sorrow. Emotional vulnerability after 80 is a profound challenge because it touches the very core of our being. Yet, it also reveals a different kind of strength. The courage to keep feeling, to keep loving, and to keep seeking meaning even in the face of overwhelming loss. Acknowledging this reality allows seniors and those who love them to seek out connection and find resilience even in their most vulnerable moments. Perhaps one of the most selfless and heartbreaking fears that settles in after 80 is the pervasive fear of becoming a burden. This anxiety is often more distressing than any physical ailment. It's the nagging worry that needing help with daily tasks, from cooking and cleaning to transportation and personal care, will place an unsustainable weight on the shoulders of children or other loved ones. Even when family members are genuinely willing, eager, and honored to provide care, the senior can be tormented by the thought of disrupting their lives, causing them stress, or limiting their freedom. This fear is rooted in a lifetime of being the caregiver, the provider, the strong one. The role reversal can feel deeply unnatural and profoundly unsettling. This fear often manifests in seniors actively hiding their struggles. They might downplay a nagging pain, insist they can manage the stairs just fine, or avoid asking for a ride to an appointment. They push themselves to do more than they safely can, not out of stubbornness, but out of a fierce, protective love for their family. The intention is to shield their loved ones from worry, but the tragic irony is that this secrecy can sometimes lead to a much greater crisis. An unspoken need can escalate into a medical emergency. A fall can result from refusing to use a walker, and a minor health issue can become serious because a doctor's visit was postponed. The emotional weight of feeling like too much trouble can be heavier and more debilitating than the physical challenges of aging itself. This deep-seated fear touches on pride, dignity, and identity. If this resonates with you and you want to support our mission to bring these important conversations to light, please take a moment to subscribe and turn on notifications. You'll be the first to know when we release new content that matters. Consider the story of Paul, an 84-year-old who, after a few close calls with losing his balance, was strongly advised by his doctor to use a walker. He flatly refused. He told his daughter, "I don't want you to see me like that. I don't want you and your brother having to worry about your old man." His refusal wasn't about vanity. It was about his perception of himself as her strong, capable father. It was a misguided attempt to protect her. A few weeks later, he fell while trying to carry groceries into the house, resulting in a broken wrist and a hospital stay. Lying in the hospital bed, he finally had a moment of clarity. He realized that his refusal to accept a small amount of help, the walker, had created a far greater burden for his daughter, who now had to take time off work and manage his much more intensive recovery. He learned that accepting help was not the same as being a burden. In fact, it was a way to maintain his own safety and, in doing so, give his family the invaluable gift of peace of mind. The fear of being a burden is a painful emotional trap, but it can be disarmed by understanding that relationships are a two-way street of giving and receiving. Allowing a loved one to care for you is not a surrender of independence. It is allowing them the profound opportunity to express their love in a tangible, meaningful way. We now arrive at the final, most profound, and perhaps most sobering reality that seniors confront after 80, the direct and undeniable awareness of mortality. Throughout most of life, death is an abstract concept, something that happens to other people, somewhere in the distant future. But in the 9th decade, the horizon feels palpably closer. The understanding that time is finite is no longer a philosophical idea, but a daily, lived reality. It sits quietly in the back of the mind with every sunrise, every family visit, every new ache or pain. This constant awareness can stir a complex cocktail of emotions: fear of the unknown, sadness at the thought of leaving loved ones, but also, paradoxically, a profound sense of gratitude for the time that remains. Confronting one's own mortality is painful because it forces a life review, a deep reflection on what has been gained and what has been lost. Seniors often look back on their lives with a sense of pride and accomplishment, but also with pangs of regret for opportunities missed, words left unsaid, or relationships left unmended. The finality of it all becomes starkly visible as friends, peers, and even younger acquaintances begin to pass away. Each obituary read is not just the story of a life gone, but a quiet echo of one's own fragile existence. Yet within this formidable truth lies a powerful and transformative invitation to live the remaining years with extraordinary intention. When seniors face mortality head-on, many report a newfound clarity about what truly matters. The frantic pursuit of status, wealth, or achievement fades away, replaced by a deep appreciation for relationships, shared memories, simple daily joys, and moments of quiet peace. Take the example of Ruth, an 86-year-old who confessed that she spent much of her early 80s consumed with anxiety about the end of her life. It was a dark cloud that followed her everywhere. One day, her therapist suggested she start a gratitude journal. Instead of dwelling on what was ending, she began to document the small, beautiful moments of each day. The taste of her morning coffee, a phone call from her grandson in college, the warmth of the afternoon sun on her face, the familiar comfort of her favorite old movie. This simple practice shifted her entire perspective. She discovered that acknowledging her mortality did not have to be a source of constant fear. Instead, it became a lens that brought the beauty of the present moment into sharp, brilliant focus. It amplified her gratitude for every single day she was given. Confronting mortality is arguably the most difficult journey of the human experience, yet it offers an unparalleled opportunity to find peace, to heal old wounds, and to approach each day with a heart wide open to meaning. By facing this ultimate truth with honesty and courage, seniors can move from a place of fear to one of profound acceptance, and even find a sense of fulfillment that makes their final years rich in ways they never could have imagined. As we bring our time together to a close, let's take a moment to hold these 8 realities in our thoughts: the challenge of declining mobility, the shock of fragile health, the ache of social isolation, the grief of losing independence, the anxiety of financial strain, the weight of emotional vulnerability, the fear of being a burden, and finally, the profound confrontation with mortality. Each one paints a stroke in the complex portrait of life after 80. These truths are not easy to look at, but acknowledging them is an act of profound compassion. It gives us the power to prepare ourselves, to adapt with grace, and to find deep meaning even in the most difficult seasons of life. Which of these realities resonated most with you? Which have you witnessed in your own life, or in the lives of the people you love? Naming these challenges honestly is the first step toward approaching them with wisdom rather than with fear. It's crucial to remember that these struggles do not diminish a person's value or erase a lifetime of accomplishments. On the contrary, they highlight the incredible strength and resilience it takes to keep navigating life when the path becomes steep and uncertain. The beauty of this advanced stage is that every day, no matter the limitations, still holds the potential for connection, for gratitude, and for growth. By embracing help when it's needed, cherishing the relationships that sustain us, and holding tight to the simple joys of daily living, we can soften the sharp edges of these painful realities and make the years ahead deeply and truly meaningful. Aging brings its trials, but it also brings the gift of perspective, a final, poignant reminder of just how precious our time and our love for one another truly are. Thank you for joining me on this deep and important exploration. I would be honored to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share one insight you learned today, or how you plan to use this understanding in your own life. Your thoughts and stories are incredibly important to us and to the community we are building here. Reading them gives us immense motivation. If you found this video helpful and thought-provoking, please show your support by giving it a like, subscribing to our channel, and sharing it with someone who might benefit from this conversation. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.